You may have heard of this phrase in spirituality that you never die and you were never born. You might also have heard of this thing called a koan or a koan, which comes from the Buddhist Zen tradition, which is a riddle or a puzzle of sorts that the Zen masters would put to their students, not for them to solve it necessarily, but to deepen their understanding and deepen or evoke an awakening within them, almost to stupefy or stop the mind. It wasn't a riddle that was logical and would ever make sense. It was something that would be beyond mind and therefore would potentially take the student to that place that is also beyond mind. And one of the most famous koans used in the Zen tradition is the following: who were you before you were born? Or what was your face before you were born? Now, these questions take us to a very deep place that is not always accessible in day-to-day life. Now, typically, when people consider themselves to be a separate individual, they believe themselves to have been born a certain number of years ago. Before that time, I didn't exist. I, John Doe, did not exist. That's when I was born. Before that time, there was no me, there was no I. And at the end of my time, when this body, mind I call John Doe dies, I will cease to exist. And from the perspective of me, the I will disappear. That's common so-called knowledge amongst 99% of the population, if not more. However, during spiritual awakening, you can sometimes sense or intuit or even directly experience that that's not quite the case. One of the ways that you can do this is through internal investigation, also known as self-inquiry. This can make or take many paths and follow many instructions, but the essential essence is, who am I? Who am I? And even Ramana Maharshi himself said that you could focus on the who am I, and that alone could take you to the awakening that you have been longing for. Another way is what we call the neti approach. Neti simply means not, so not this, not that. A simple way to do this is to strip back anything that you are not. And you do this through self-inquiry. It's not through assumption. It's not through guesswork or hope. It's through logical, diligent self-inquiry. So you can start, for example, with thoughts. Some people feel their internal voice, the thoughts that they see and the thoughts they observe, they feel that is them. When they wake up in the morning and the voice says, oh, yep, it's time to get up. I need to go and brush my teeth. And this is what I've got to do today. They identify with those thoughts. And when they're logical thoughts, it makes sense. But when they're random thoughts, as the mind tends to do, oh, what about this? Have you thought about that? I see an object out there, that's triggered a memory. I've seen somebody's face there, that's triggered a different response. I've seen an animal there, that's triggered a flight, a fear response. When you identify with the mind in that way and you feel that you are the mind, your life is chaos. Because the mind is permanently in a state of lack and desire. It feels it's never enough. Nothing is ever enough. No amount of money, no amount of experience, no amount of love that it can get, no amount of acceptance that it can get. Nothing is ever enough for the mind. So it's in this permanent state of lack and a permanent state of almost fear. What's going to happen next? Everything is endangering me. That sound could be a burglar. That car could knock me over. That weather report might lead to, the destruction of my universe. My boss telling me off might lead to my breakdown of my social standing and losing my job. The mind catastrophizes. It tries to permanently protect itself. So it's in this permanent state of fear and lack. It's on a constant trajectory to try and change what is. And that's where all the conflict in the world comes from. When the mind perceives what is, and the mind says, I don't like that, that is not satisfactory. It's not enough. It's not joyful enough. It's not giving me enough pleasure. It's causing me pain. So that dissatisfaction with what is what causes happiness to be obscured. Because happiness is your true nature. Now, I don't mean deliriously happy, like, oh, I'm joyfully laughing and, in a permanent state of bliss. I mean happiness as in peace, as in love, as in calm acceptance and welcoming of everything that is. Literally a lack of any lack, a fulfillment, a situation where you move through the world without wanting anything, without needing anything, and without resisting anything. The mind cannot get to that place because of how it inherently is. So some people refer to themselves or feel they are that internal voice of fear and lack. And very infrequently, that goes away, typically after some kind of desire has been felt. So we can break this down and investigate what this means. There is a sense of lack created by the mind because nothing is good enough for the mind. It's always seeking to protect itself. It always feels endangered. And it always feels that the world should be shaped to its desires and its demands. Okay, and that sense of lack, the sense that looking, the perceptions that come into the mind through the body, so the senses of the body, sensory organs of the body, send that stuff in. The mind, no matter what that is, 999 times out of 100 will look at that and the mind will say that is not satisfactory. I need to improve it, change it, get more of it, get less of it. It's never happy. The mind is never happy unless it appears, unless a desire is fulfilled. So let's say, for example, you have a desire for chocolate, okay? Simple desire to eat chocolate. Now, desires inherently are not wrong. Eating chocolate is not wrong. There is no judgment here. We're just investigating the process. Now, that desire comes initially from a sense of lack, right? The mind thinks, I'm bored, I don't feel quite happy, there's something missing, let me just go and get some chocolate. That always makes me feel better, right? That's the mind. That's not you, it's the mind, because you observe this, which is another hint for you that you are not the mind, because you always can observe the thoughts. You observe thoughts, and you also observe when there are no thoughts. If you've ever meditated, or even if you've never meditated, just the gap between thoughts, you are still aware of that. You don't disappear when there are no thoughts, which is another clue that you are not thoughts. And believe it or not, and you can do research on this, there are people in the world who don't have an internal dialogue. Okay, and they still exist, right? They have thoughts, of course, but they don't have that internal dialogue like most people have. That internal dialogue is easy to get confused and wrapped up in thinking that's what you are. But again, it's observed. You're watching it. You know what's being said. Who's listening to that internal dialogue? That's one way that you can break free from it. When you see the mind and you see this voice internally saying these things, who's listening? Who is listening to that? Who's aware of that? So let's go back to the desire. So there's a sense of lack. The mind feels this sense of lack, and that creates the desire. I must fulfill this desire in order to fulfill this lack, to fill the gap. Okay, and it could be a desire for a cigarette, for alcohol, for chocolate, for sex, for relationships, for watching TV, for whatever it is, right? There's a sense of lack typically that initiates that. If there was no sense of lack, there wouldn't be a desire, because you wouldn't want anything, you wouldn't need anything, because you feel completely fulfilled at all times. But it's only the lack that drives, in this sense, a desire. So lack is created by the mind, a sense of lack, that initiates a desire. Now, before the desire has been fulfilled, the sense of lack and unhappiness is accentuated, it's increased. Once you've set off on that path, or once the mind has set off on that path, should I say, to fulfill the desire, the pain or the dissatisfaction is greater than before. It amplifies it. This must be filled. You must satisfy this now. Otherwise, this is getting worse. The mind gets more agitated, gets more driven that this lack is worse than it ever is, and that you must fulfill this desire. And you can see this happen. You can observe this happen with any, from the biggest to the smallest micro desires. You can see this happen in action. Once you kind of listen to the mind and you obey the mind, you don't have to do what the mind says. You are not the mind, right? But once you get on board with what the mind's saying, you'll notice how that desire is increased. Once the mind gives it credence and gets your buy-in, it amps up the pain. You must fulfill this now. Right? Now, you don't have to give in to this. When you first sense a lack, when the mind starts telling you, oh, there's lack, you feel bored right now, you're distracted, or you're feeling anguish or in pain, and you need to go do something, have a cigarette or a drink or a smoke or whatever, you can just pause at that time and just basically take a moment and consider, who has this lack? Who has the lack? The mind is saying it is lacking. But do you, the real true you, are you actually lacking? And what you'll find is you start to recognize that the underlying you, which is awareness or consciousness or spirit or whatever you want to call it, this observer of everything, you are on an even keel. You don't lack anything. When you close your eyes, okay, just close your eyes just now, and we'll all do this together. Just take a couple of breaths. And if thoughts arise, that's fine. Don't follow the thoughts. Okay, it's like a river. You're sitting by the river. Don't jump into the river and follow the thoughts. And don't try and stop the thoughts. Don't jump into the river and try and block the flow of the river. Just observe the river flowing by. Now ask yourself the question internally, am I aware? Okay, ask yourself, am I aware? And then answer the question truthfully. Yes, I am aware. Now, the place that you went to in order to get the answer to that question is not the mind. The mind heard the words that I gave you for the question. The mind uttered the words to yourself, either out loud or in your own head. But the place you went for verification, am I aware, was not a thought. It was awareness. Now consider that awareness for a moment and tell me what you feel its qualities are. You can type them into the chat box if you want. I know we've got some people here right now. So type into the comments, what would you describe? How would you describe the quality of that awareness? What would you say it is? Would you say it? How would you describe it? Anything. Which words would you use to describe that place that you went to verify that you are aware? What's its taste? What's its essence? What does it feel like? There's no wrong answers. Type them into the comment box. So this awareness is the kind of words that you may suggest are unlimited. It's loving, it's open, it's accepting, it is welcoming, it's infinite. Now, I don't want to put words in your head. You need to qualify this and verify this for yourself. But when you truly investigate this, what you'll find is that the true nature that you are, this awareness, this consciousness, does not have lack. It lacks nothing. If we imagine awareness to be a screen, and everything that takes place in your life, all of experience and senses and perception, all of that is what's appearing on the screen. Nothing that appears on the screen can affect the screen. The awareness and the quality of awareness that you have right now in this moment is the same awareness and the same quality of awareness that you had a minute ago, a week ago, 10 years ago. Awareness does not degrade over time. It doesn't get old. The body gets old. Even the mind can get old, but the awareness never changes, which again is another clue, another hint, another pointer. So going back to this desire, the mind feels this sense of lack. It then creates this desire and it then amplifies it. When you jump on board with that and say, oh yeah, I must go and satisfy that desire, it makes it even worse, and you feel more and more agitated as this goes on. You must satisfy this desire. Now, the moment that the desire is satisfied, there is a release. Whether it's eating chocolate or drinking alcohol or whatever it is that you've been desiring, or the mind has been desiring, once that's fulfilled, there's this release. Now, the mistake is believing that the fulfillment of that desire is what has created that sense of release, relief, and temporary happiness. That's the mistake. The truth is it's the ending of desire that creates the relief and the release and the happiness. Okay, I'll say that again because this is super, super important to have a direct impact in your everyday life. When a desire is fulfilled, a drink, smoke, anything, watching TV or something that you feel is going to fulfill this sense of lack, or the mind thinks is going to fulfill this sense of lack, when it's fulfilled and you feel that rush and it's so happy and peaceful, although obviously it never lasts forever, it only ever lasts for moments, that sense, that sensation and that experience is because of the ending of desire. It is not because of the object or the experience. And the way you can qualify that and prove that to yourself is you will have done those things, that thing that you so desired at that particular moment. You will have done that or taken that or eaten that or experienced that thing prior in many other occasions previously, and it did not lead to the same experience that followed after you'd fulfilled the desire. So it's the ending of desire. Desire creates unhappiness. The mistake is we feel that we are the mind. The mind has this sense of lack. Nothing's ever good enough. Nothing's perfect. The mind argues with the world. Okay, the mind both creates and argues with the world. It separates the world, the whole, everything that there is, all that there is, of which the mind is also a part. It separates all of that into named, labeled definitions and creates separation. I'm here, you're there, the world is here, this is the UK, this is the USA, this is good, this is bad, this is black, this is white. It creates separation. Okay, the mind is a separation machine. After it's separated, it makes judgments. I don't like this, I do like this. I don't want this, I do want this. And by its nature, 99% of what it sees and experiences, it does not like. And it feels if it can change and it can move in the world and it can create and manufacture and go against the universe and craft the perfect world and the perfect experience enough, it believes it can flip the balance there and be happy 99% of the time. But it never stops. The mind never stops. Again, you can see this. Moments, sometimes seconds after fulfilling a desire, what does the mind do? Hey, I'm back. Now I feel bad. There's a sense of lack. You just fulfilled that desire. Now you're going to have to do something because you feel bad about this. You're a bad person, or you've lapsed on something, or you've eaten too much. There's a sense of lack. So the very act that the mind had determined would produce happiness has simultaneously produced unhappiness for the duration before it was achieved. It was then the kind of clouds parted whilst happiness was sensed when the desire had ended and there was no desire. During the no desire period of just a few moments, there was happiness. And then another desire and another sense of lack was created by the mind. And so the cycle continues. So is this making sense to you? Is this helping you? Please let me know in the chat or in the comments. Yes, says Eddie. Thank you. You're welcome. So this is one of the traps that people can fall into. Believing that you're the mind. Okay, believing that you're the mind, or that you're the body. So I've given you some hints here, some pointers that suggest. But the neti approach that I referred to earlier, this is, again, another form of self-inquiry. And when you're looking for truth, you can either go inward, or you can go outward, or you can go what's called the direct path. Okay, so there's two progressive paths. Inward, which is self-inquiry, which we'll talk about. Outward, which is inquiry into the nature of reality, the nature of matter, the nature of experience. Those are both progressive paths. The idea or the belief is that they are progressive. There's a step that you do, did this and this and this, and eventually it will lead to awakening or enlightenment. And then the third way is the wayless way, the pathless path. It's merely a direct and immediate understanding that you are enlightenment, that you are consciousness, you are awareness. And it's not something you need to arrive at. There's not a series of things you need to do. You just accept that and realize that fully. Because the spiritual journey is a journey to nowhere. It's a journey to yourself. And you can't take a step towards yourself because you are already that. So the progressive paths at an absolute level are unnecessary. But to those who still feel they are a separate individual, they serve some kind of purpose. And this is where people get tripped up. And it is a confusing and frustrating topic where people say, well, if I already am this, why do I even need to meditate? Somebody asked me the other day on the channel, they said, I know that I am awareness, I know that I'm consciousness, but I keep slipping back into bad habits. I keep playing video games all the time. And do I need to meditate? Do I need to spend more time seeking in order for this to be established? Or because I already know that I'm this, what's the point? Can I just wait and it will happen? And what I said to this individual or apparent individual is you need to live from your deepest known truth. If you have really experienced a embodied level in your heart, in your mind, you physically sense that you are consciousness and you've lost or started to shed the identity of a separate person, you need to live from that. You need to live from that place and operate from that place. It doesn't mean that you won't still do human being type things, but they would be done, or you'd be conducting yourself in a way that is in concert, is in tandem with your deepest understanding. If you still feel and understand that you are a separate individual and you don't buy into this, you've not experienced it yet, you've not got to that level of realization, then that's fine. You have to live from your deepest truth. You don't want to try and pretend. Pretending is never a good thing in any area of life, and particularly in spirituality. Don't pretend you're further ahead, although it's not, as I say, it's not really a journey at all. There aren't stages as such, really. But don't pretend you've experienced more than you have, but don't pretend you haven't seen. And I've seen both things from people who contacted me saying, people that are in, I wouldn't even say it's denial. It's more they've been scared by what they've experienced. They've experienced that, wow, there really is nothing here. This is just the universe. This thing here is just part of all that there is. And I've given it a name, or somebody's given it a name. I've attached all these stories to it, and I keep, filing through these thoughts about what's so-called happened to this so-called individual in the past. And this is the story that I carry around. And I've built this whole infrastructure here. But literally at the drop of a hat, you can just say, I'm not my story. And you disappear as a person. Now, one of the ways that this kind of hit me was when I used to cycle. I used to be really seriously into bike racing. And for many, many years, I would devote 15 to 20 hours a week racing my bike, training, a strict regime, a coach, nutrition, getting up at 6 a.m. in the morning, biking, cycling 200 miles a week. And then one day I just realized that I didn't want to do it anymore. It wasn't me. And I'd built up this whole identity. My whole identity was about this competitive amateur cyclist. I'd been to the world championships, I'd won medals and awards, and this is who I was. I had all the equipment, I had all the clothing. Every waking moment I thought about this, and everything that I did was based around this. Every decision that I made was based around this identity. And one day I literally just got off the bike and said, no more. And that identity ended in an instant. And it made me realize at that point that it's just an idea. Who you've taken yourself to be as a person is literally just an idea. It's nothing more than that. So this neti approach, as you try and investigate what you really are and who you truly are, and the fact you were never born and you will never die, this neti approach is a discounting approach. You discount everything that you're not. Now, for me at that time, a whole bunch of layers got discounted simultaneously. I'm not this. If I'm not this person and this cyclist, and then I can just discount all of this. You know, I'm not the name. The name that I've been given is completely arbitrary. I'm not that. The experiences that have happened to me is that, and people say, oh, your experiences shape who you are. Yeah, but they're not now. I mean, they're memories in the now. But right now this is who I am now. When I say when we answered that question earlier, am I aware? Yes. That is who I am. And I didn't have to go back and say, oh yeah, well, what did you do when you were 5 years old? And what school did you go to? And where were you born? And what was your mum and dad like? And have you got any brothers and sisters? What's your name? What's your gender? You don't need any of that to answer that question. To know that you are, and to sense that you are aware, and to rest in that, none of that matters. It's completely irrelevant. So after the I am, everything else is just a concept generated by the mind. I remember when I was at school and we were set the task of dividing up a list of objects from man-made objects and natural objects. And I put everything, it was diagrams, right? I think I was about 9 years old at the time, 8 or 9, I think. And I just put everything in the natural pile, circle them all. They're all nature, including like plastic and television and everything. My teacher was like, well, what do you mean that those are man-made? And I said, yeah, but man is nature. A human being is, it's all nature. So there is no separation. There is just this, all that there is. And you are that. So this neti approach, some people do it gradually. Okay, so I'm not the name. That's not, if you change name, another good way to do this is you either remove or change the variable and see if it makes a difference. Okay, so if you change name, would you still be yourself? And I'm asking this legitimately. Okay, you can answer in the comments if you wish. So if you change name right now, would you still, when you say I am blah, 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 new name, would you still be yourself if you change name? Of course you would, right? So you're not your name. What about gender? Let's go there. If you change gender and you said I am such and such, I'm man, I'm female, whatever, would you still be yourself? Yes, of course, says Eddie, right? So gender is not what you are. Gender is not a requirement. As Eddie says here, the consciousness is still the same. Now let's talk about the body, right? The elephant in the room. Now, if you lost a limb, right, let's say you're unfortunate and you lost an arm, would you still be you? Of course you would. If you still lost both your arms and both your legs, would you still be you? Of course you would. if there was a way to keep the body alive just from the neck up, would you still be you? Yes, of course you would. Right? So this thing, this bag of meat and bones, is not you. So at this point, you start to discount everything. You think, okay, well, wait a minute. So I'm not a name, I'm not my gender, I'm not my location, I'm not my profession, because obviously that can change. I'm not a brother or a son or a husband or anything like that. These are all just ideas. They're just concepts that the mind has said, okay, if this and this, let's call this this, right? Now, again, I'm not saying the mind is bad. The definitions and the separations that the mind creates are, to a certain degree, essential for human beings to operate. Right? You need to know what somebody means when they say, please, can I have a glass of water? But at the absolute level, a glass of water or a mug of tea like this don't exist. That they are, it's simply all that there is. All that there is. Another way, and it's something else I remember doing, is looking at my hand. Right? You can do this yourself. Take your hand right now and look at your hand and just say, what is this? Just think about what this is as you look at your hand. Okay, if somebody comes into the room, they'll probably think you've lost it. So look at your hand. What is this? Well, you could say, well, as I look at this, this is a hand. Is it though? Right? Because all that's happened is at some point, someone has decided to separate this element of the body and just give it an arbitrary name. In other languages, it's called something else. Right? So they've just arbitrarily said, okay, at this point where it bends, let's call this bit something. That's not what it is, though, is it? That's just like me taking a bit of paper, drawing a circle in a part of it and just saying, let's call this bit Bob. I mean, it's useful, but it's not what it is. Do you see the difference? It's useful to say that this is a hand. Clap your hands, hold your hands together, put your hands. It makes sense. It's useful, but it's not an accurate description of what it is. Because what is this? Well, it's part of this. It's part of this, which is part of the room, which is part of the house, which is part of the street, part of the town, part of the country, part of the continent, part of the planet, part of the solar system, part of the universe. It's indivisible. This is the universe being observed by the universe. That's it. Now, the mind has created separation and labeling and division so it can move in the world. Useful, yes. Accurate, no. So when you consider what you are with this neti approach, you reach the point where, okay, well, I'm not the name, I'm not the gender, I'm not the age, I'm not the profession, I'm not the thoughts. I've already established that. It's one of the easiest things to establish, particularly in meditation. As you observe the thoughts, you first sit down to meditate, your mind goes crazy and you're just looking at all this stuff happen. What is looking, right? It's not a thought that's looking, it's awareness that is observing the thoughts. Okay. So you're not the thoughts and you're not the body. We've established that. You can lose all of the body and it wouldn't accurately describe you. Now, at this point, there's a blockage and people think, well, actually, is it a combination of all these things? In the brain creates consciousness or awareness, which we'll just use as the same term for the purposes of this conversation. Isn't it that the brain creates consciousness or awareness? So when I say I, isn't it just something in the brain that does that? So therefore I am the body. So there's consciousness created in the brain. and also thoughts created in the brain. And this is the position that you might get to. And I got to this position. I was comfortable that I wasn't the name, the gender, the location, that I wasn't the body. But I thought, well, doesn't consciousness come from the brain? A couple of things on this. Firstly, there is no scientific proof that consciousness is generated by the brain. I'll say that again because it's surprising, but you can go and look it up yourself. There is no scientific proof that consciousness is generated by the brain. Scientists do not have a clue when it comes to consciousness. Okay. The second thing that I like to think of, or that I thought of at the time when I was going through this, is if you were just up in here behind the eyes, if that was the you that you say when you say I am, if you were just in here, you would know. You would know what you were if it was self-contained in here. How could you not? I mean, if the mind is what you were, what you truly are, you would know, wouldn't you? And yet we don't. So again, that's not a definitive answer, but it's one of these hints or pointers that, like, oh yeah, surely the mind would know, but it doesn't know anything. It knows only that I am is the only thing you can say with certainty, that I am. You can't actually ever get to the end and discover exactly what you are. We can call it consciousness, we can call it awareness, call it spirit, we can call it all that there is, we can call it the universe, we can call it God. It's beyond mind. That's why we can't know. So mind is not it, because it's beyond, literally and figuratively, it is beyond the mind to know what you truly are. Now, the other thing to throw in the mix at this point, we're talking about consciousness and the mind. A couple of things. One is near-death experiences. And again, you can do a lot of research in this topic and see that many people have recounted after being after near-death experiences where their heart stopped for sometimes 20 minutes, their brain activity is zero, and they've come back and they've recounted awareness of what was going on in a room. I read a story of a nurse who brought a guy in who was completely medically dead, okay, brain activity zero, heart had stopped. I think it was 20, 30 minutes. And they had to take his false teeth out, I believe it was, as part of this procedure to try and get him back to, bring him back with CPR, but it took 20 to 30 minutes. So they took his false teeth out and they put them on one of these trolley things. Anyway, they moved into another room. I think he was in a coma for a few days as well, but he came round. And when he came round a few days later, the nurse who had taken his false teeth out went into the room and he said, "Oh, you know where my false teeth are." Now, when they were taken out, there was zero brain activity and zero heart activity. And you can find a whole bunch of these scientifically proven studies of aspects of consciousness or awareness during near-death experiences, which is another thing to throw into the mix. Loanne, good to see you here. It says, we spend so much time talking and reading to our children, stressing reading skills, but I felt a little sad when ours learned they lost that immediate link to life, unmediated by words. Yeah, that's very true. It's like Krishnamurti said, a bird is not a bird. When you look out of your window and see a bird, it's not that. It's just a definition. It's just an arbitrary word given to a one aspect of the universe. The bird is the universe. It's God itself. It's literally love, flying through love, observed by love. It blows your mind when you start to understand this. So another aspect I want to throw in for this consciousness and mind section here is a scientific experiment where the observer affects what is observed. And again, you can look this up. This is a study of lights or photons, which is I believe the smallest component of light. And how when you fire a photon through a slit, it will behave in a certain way depending on whether it is being observed or not. So they set up the experiment and they can get the result when they're not observing it, and they can see that result after. When they watch the experiment and they are observing it, the light moves in a different way. So the observer, the presence of consciousness affects the outcome of the experiment. That's a scientific fact. And that's at a quantum level, like a most microscopic, tiny, minute level of physics and science. They are starting to understand that consciousness itself is not separate to any of this. And there are many scientists coming forward who feel that consciousness is not generated by the brain, that the brain is a receptor for consciousness. And this is where I came up with the model of the prism. Okay, so you imagine that there is light dispersed everywhere. Okay, like the light in the room that I'm in right now. You can't see the light, but we know it's there, right? It's everywhere. Now, if we were to narrow the beam, narrow light by getting, like a slit of paper, narrowing it and shining light through a narrow slit, this narrowing in this metaphor is like the body. Okay, it's all of everything that there is. This light of consciousness is narrowed by the form of the body. Okay, then this narrow beam is passed through a prism. Now the prism is the mind. Okay, the body is the narrowing of consciousness. The prism is the mind. Remember that. What does the mind do? The mind is a separation machine. It separates everything. This is good, this is bad, this is black, this is white, that's a bird, that's a sheep, that's John, that's Mary. The prism of the mind separates and divides and refracts the infinite light of consciousness into the rainbow of experience, and the world is born. So there is only this light of awareness. There's only all that there is, this one thing, not two. Okay, non-dual. It's only one. But the narrowing through the body of the beam of this all-encompassing light, and then firing it through the prism of the mind, which then refracts, separates into this rainbow of experience where things become a separate, that's a field, that's a cloud, that's a John Smith. So many people take themselves to be that narrowing in that prism. I'm the body mind. I'm the narrowing, which is the body, and I'm the prism. You're the light. You're the light. And the experience, the rainbow of all the experiences, is also you. Everything you encounter is you and is arising within you. And importantly, if the prism is taken away and the narrowing is taken away, so if the body-mind dies, the light still is. Does that make sense? So this is what I'm saying, why you were never born and you will never die, because that light of awareness is your true nature, narrowed by the form of the body, refracted by the prism of the mind. But neither of those are required for the light to exist. Aaron says boundless, constant, unconditional. Arian says you are like Rupert Spira. Thank you, Arian. I take that as a compliment. Rupert is one of the teachers I followed on my decades-long journey, along with Adyashanti and also some unnamed monks who are not on the public scene. I was first taught by a Buddhist monk in Scotland. We became good friends and we would go out for meals together. And after him, I was taken under the wing of a monk in America, and then started reading Adyashanti and other so-called famous authors. But as we said at the beginning, there's nothing you can do to accelerate an awakening, and there's nothing you can do to hinder an awakening. But there is a famous quote which says, seeking will not lead to awakening, but only seekers will be awakened. And sometimes there are just no words. This famous Zen master quote of, when I speak, I tell a lie, but if I stay silent, I am a coward. Which essentially means I'm grasping here to try and describe the indescribable. It's like trying to paint with a brick. Okay, it's impossible. And the moment anything is said, it is wrong. And I just endeavor to be as unwrong as I can be. And the truest teaching is merely silence, but that doesn't appear to help those who still feel themselves to be separate, those who still feel there must be action to take. But ultimately, that action or that drive to seek, where does that come from? It comes from the mind. The awareness is already peaceful. Like, have you ever noticed how when you're aware of things, when something happens in your experience, okay, the body might react and the mind might react, but the awareness welcomes everything with open arms. You know, if you look at a lovely, peaceful scene, the awareness is the same. If you look at some, a street fight that breaks out, the awareness is the same. The awareness is the same. So whatever comes and goes is not you. This is another approach to the neti strategy, if you like, the not this, not that. If something arises and then goes away, it's not you. Now, another kind of pitfall that people can sometimes fall into with this is they say, well, when I fall asleep, I go away. So awareness or consciousness goes away, so I can't be there. When you're in deep sleep, there is not an absence of consciousness or awareness. There is awareness of absence. The mind is still and the body is still. The body is not taking any perceptions in. So there's literally awareness. It's not that you have no awareness. It's an awareness of nothing. It's just that's your natural state. That's what lies underneath all of this noise and all of this rainbow of activity and experience is this light of awareness. And you don't have to be asleep to realize that. You can find that in a quiet moment. You can Find it on the meditation cushion. If you've ever got to that position in meditation where there are no thoughts, and sometimes it can just last a second, sometimes it can last minutes, it feels like eternity. There's just awareness. Nothing else. Sven says, so if awakening can't be sped up, it doesn't matter whether you go on a meditation retreat or binge watch Netflix while eating burger and fries. Well, I addressed this earlier. You maybe joined a little late and didn't see this, but at an absolute level, it doesn't matter, because you are already this. But there is also a duty. Okay, there are three things that will drive you. Okay, three things that motivate. One is a desire, which we mentioned. That's the mind creates a sense of lack. I don't have enough. I feel unhappy. I'm going to go do this, eat this, drink this, meet this person, do this activity, and it will fulfill it. It doesn't work, doesn't stop 99% of the world's population trying repeatedly throughout their life. That's desire. Second is devotion. Devotion is devotion to truth. So when you've felt or experienced a deep truth about your reality, you have this devotion to it, this love of it, that you want to share it. This is why I'm talking to you right now. It's not a desire, it's devotion. It's a love of love itself. It's wanting to shout from the rooftops about the truth that you've experienced. That's devotion. So desire can move you, devotion can move you. And the third is duty. And this is what some people kind of forget during awakening, or if they've had a deep realization, this falls away for a time, the duty. And the duty is to initially to the body mind itself. There's still a duty there. Once you've realized that you are nothing, literally, like everything is what you are, and there is no separate person, it doesn't mean that you neglect that. You treat it with even greater care, because everything is you. There is just a love of all, including this. It's not that this doesn't exist. It's that that this is a separate thing doesn't exist. But this, like the screen, like you, like the camera, like the blinds, like the trees, are me, are the universe, are you. So they're all treated the same. So there's still a duty to the body mind, to look after the mind, the body, a duty to take care of the family, a duty to spread the love of truth, and a duty to look after others. Ultimately, truth is waking up to itself, which is why spiritual teachers often say there's nothing you can do about it. The good news is there's nothing you can do. The bad news is there's nothing you can do. So people think, oh, well, I'll just go and do whatever. But that is a choice. That's not letting go. That's in denial of the truth that you've seen. There is still a movement of devotion and a movement of duty, not just a movement of no movement. Right? Even doing nothing is something. You're actively doing nothing. I'm sitting here, I'm going to do nothing. Don't need to do anything. I'm not going to do anything. If you feel drawn, as Ramana Maharshi said, if you want to meditate, meditate. If you want to say mantras, say mantras. You don't need to stop or start anything. And to those who still feel themselves to be separate, it can seem to help. But some people have this awakening and realization stepping on a boss. A golfer reached out to me a few months ago, was not in a spiritual scene at all, was not seeking anything, was not reading anything, was not watching videos on YouTube. Suddenly woke up the next day and realized he wasn't a person. and he was reaching out to me, desperate for help. Truth ignites itself. On the last live stream, I spoke about this metaphor of a firework where you light the fuse, and that initial spark of inquiry, the dissatisfaction with the world, and sensing there's something different, there's something meaningful and something truer somewhere. That's the spark of seeking. Once it lights that fuse, there's no going back. But really, it's not you that's lighting that. It's reality. It's the universe itself wanting to know itself. Luan says, you're making perfect sense. Those examples you just gave me reminded me of Krishnamurti's comment. I don't mind what happens. A couple more questions. Sorry, 1 second. I'll be back in 1 moment. Bear with me. Okay, sorry about that. The doorbell rang. Somebody asking, are you aware of Tony Parsons or Jim Newman? The names ring a bell. Oh, yeah, the names ring a bell, but I've not read or seen anything by them, I don't think. AK says, how can doing nothing and nothing being done be distinguished? That is a good question. I spent months trying to get to the bottom of that question, because when I had this, or as I was going through kind of awakening stages, as it were, there was a period of months where I couldn't operate. It completely destroyed my ability to move and operate in the world. So for quite a few months, I was doing nothing. But it was, or certainly at the time, felt like a choice of doing nothing. So it wasn't what I'm suggesting is, the easiest way to describe this is a metaphor, right? So if we go to a river as a metaphor, there's doing nothing, we're actively doing nothing, right? Would be going into the river and standing tall like this. I'm doing nothing, I'm standing here, right? You're fighting the flow of life. You're fighting what is. You're doing that perfect mind thing that it likes to do, which is resist what is. Okay, so you're standing trying to fight the flow of the river. You can argue that you're doing nothing. I'm not doing anything. I'm doing nothing. But you see how that's active. You're actively doing nothing. You're resisting what is. Whereas letting go, if we refer to it as that rather than doing nothing, letting go would be floating down the river. You see the difference? So that's it's very subtle, but that's what I'm talking about. Sven, thank you for clarifying. I indeed came late to the stream. That's fine. Sven says, but still, I have the impression that this can only be, this contradiction can only be understood from the other side of the veil. Possibly. I've yet to hear a description or an explanation of that would satisfy anybody, because the reason for, and we're talking about this idea that, well, if you don't need to do anything to awaken, then why bother meditating? What's the purpose of all those activities, right? The reason that creates such a conflict and is such a paradox and a contradiction is because of what people perceive awakening or enlightenment to be. When you start out on seeking, and well, I'll talk about myself. I won't speak to you. When I started out, I believed that I, the person, the name, as I believed myself to be back then, I'm going to get this thing. I'm going to become enlightened. I'm going to become awakened. It's going to be this amazing experience. It's going to be an explosion. I'll start shining from every pore, and it's going to change my life completely. And I'm going to walk around as this awakened, enlightened person. And it's going to be amazing. Down to you whether or not you ascribe to that, or are brave enough to admit that you also hold that view in some corner of your mind. Awakening does to the person as a fire does to a match. Okay, the match is desperate to be enlightened. It gets enlightened, and it is no more. And that's where the contradiction comes, because at the time when you consider yourself separate, you feel that you must do something. Like, you can't, how could I just sit here and wait and do nothing? There must be something that I can do. And there is, until there isn't. As you said, it can really only be seen, I guess, beyond the veil. I was listening to Satyam Nadeem yesterday, and he spent decades meditating and studying and reading. And then I think it was when he was actually in prison, he instantaneously kind of woke up. And the interviewer said, "Oh, so you did all of that for nothing then?" And he said, "Well, we don't know that. We don't know that it's for nothing." There are commonalities of people that seem to be apparent in this so-called separate individuals, of people that wake up and consider themselves no longer separate. Meditation, of course, is one. But for me, it goes down to that sense of devotion and duty. Even if you've don't feel you've awakened, or you've had any kind of awakening thing at the moment, you can still live from what you feel what you know best, or what you've experienced the deepest. You can still operate from that and still say, no, I'm serving that. I'm living to that. So I'm going to serve that. I'm going to meditate. I'm going to help others. I'm going to look after the mind, look after the body, look after my family. So as you keep serving the truth that you know, like what you've experienced that's most deep for you, when you keep laying down at the altar, as it were, of that, the next part of it occurs. But the great cosmic joke of it all is that you arrive where you left, but you're not there. You know, you literally set off on this so-called journey with a watch, which tells the time, a compass, which tells you the direction, and the person. When you get there, time's gone, direction and you know, planning and any sense of needing to do anything is gone, and the person isn't there. And the truth is, it's literally where you started. It's here now. Yeah. Keep it up, says Laid Back Languages. Thank you. AK says, thank you. There's nothing much happening except frittering between one thing or another, but nothing ever getting done. The resistance arises because there's a feeling that I should be doing. Just try and operate from truth. That's all I can tell you. You know, you may get to the point where the truth for you is that nothing needs to be done. If that doesn't feel like truth to you, operate to what your truth is. I feel that I'm still to seek something. I'm still to find something. I'm still to unlock something. Then keep doing what you've been doing. Arian, I think I know that I am awareness, but not 100% anchored in it. Would you suggest meditation, or are you familiar with opening chakras? I had a opening of my crown chakra during a meditation many years ago, before I even knew what a chakra was. It was quite a a fantastic yet utterly confusing experience. Not 100% anchored in it. There is this misunderstanding, I feel, that there is an end goal where the awakened move in the world in a constant state of bliss or realization. It's like a pendulum, essentially. You know, you start off just in a state of separation over here, and then something happens. You're like, I feel tense because I'm being pulled up like here, like a pendulum. It doesn't feel right. It feels like some kind of pressure. And then the journey into spirituality begins, right? And then you go over here and you feel bliss. And, oh, wow, I feel oneness. I'm just awareness. Guess what happens? You go back. You go back to separation. And it's like a pendulum. You flip-flop. And I've got a video on my channel you can check out about the spiritual flip-flop syndrome. The conditioning of the body, mind, and everything it's gone through over its lifetime takes time to eradicate. Right? Over time, the pendulum swings less and less until it just comes to rest in equilibrium, not partway between separation and realization. That's where the metaphor falls down. But it just happens less and less. When it first starts to happen, you fall back, like you've seen something or you felt something and then it's gone. Really frustrating, and you can waste a lot of time and energy trying to go back, trying to reclaim or trying to reignite or recreate what's happened. But again, as we said before, if something has arisen but is also gone, it ain't you. So don't go looking for it. You can have the most fantastic experiences in meditation, but that's not the experience that comes and goes. Is not it. Okay, this is the most ordinary thing. It's always with you. You're always aware. Like you don't have to initiate it. You don't have to chant aware, aware, aware. If there's something going in, like you are this. You can't not be this. This is the irony of it. At a basic level, there is all that there is. Right? Let's just agree that there is all that there is. That encompasses everything that there is, and you are that. You can't not be that. When the body mind dies, you're still that. Before that body mind was arisen, you was born, so to speak, you were still all that there is. And there's nothing that you could do, say, or any activity that you could do that would make you not all that there is. And yet, there is still that duty to look after yourself and others. There's still that devotion to truth. And these are how you can try and move in the world. It's a complicated thing to try and navigate, which is why I try and do these live streams to help you. Okay, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this. If you joined late, this video will be going up on the channel, so you'll be able to watch it in full. And I plan to do more of these. So if you take the time in the comments to let me know what time works for you, that would also help me, so I can try and help as many people as possible. All right, much love. Take care.